everyone, Cameron Eldred here, doctor and athletic training student for Indiana State University. So this is just going to be a quick reflection about the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness Skills. I've actually taken this before and didn't pay much attention to it. Just thought, oh, this is just another thing that they're having us do. Another teacher's having us do type of thing. Didn't care about it much. But this time I was a little bit more intrigued with my results, I guess you could say. I've been a little bit more self-aware recently. I found that this reflection is going to be easier for me to talk about out loud and in person as I think about the thoughts that are going through my head rather than writing everything out. This is just a lot easier medium for me to be able to express myself. We'll start with the lowest portion. So my description skills was an extremely low score. It was a 20. But I've always noticed that this is something that's difficult for me. I have a hard time getting words out. I have ideas, and trying to describe those ideas or the processes that I'm thinking through in my head to other people sometimes doesn't come across the way that I want it to. I've thought about, how do I change this? How do I make this better? And a lot of it's just changing my vocabulary and slowing down. But I still find myself questioning. I ask all the time, did that make sense to you? It made sense in my head. So it doesn't surprise me that my description skills are lower than anything else. This actually is something that I'm very aware of, and it's something that's very self-conscious for me. Because a lot of the times I do have these good ideas, and I do have the ability to understand and speak at the level of my peers, but sometimes it doesn't come across that way, and so I'm very self-conscious about it. I tend to look down on myself, if that makes sense. But that actually makes a lot of sense because, my act with awareness, my observation were my two highest ones. So that really doesn't surprise me that I'm super self-conscious about it, that I'm very aware of what's going on around me and how my speech may affect others or my description skills. So the second or third highest one, so, after the last one, again, there it is, the description skills, was accept without judgment. That one was pretty low. A lot of this I kind of internalized because I judge the hell out of myself. I really do. Every little move I make, if I don't understand it, I question it. If I think that I'm wrong, I wonder why, and I dwell on it. So accepting things without judgment is very hard for me. All the work I do, I'm like, oh, that was subpar, or wow, that was fantastic, and I learned a lot from it. I always tend to judge everything that I do based off of how I think I did. So accepting without judging, I thought that one would have been a little bit lower than it actually was, but I think a lot of that just comes from my personality. It's who I am. I'm very how do I put this politely? Self-depreciating. A lot of that stems from my childhood. There's things that went on in my childhood that just didn't benefit me for right now. I'll put it that way. And I apologize if you think I'm getting too deep here, but, I feel like I need to talk about these things. Judgment's always been a big part of my life, especially self-judgment, self-depreciation, things like that. I never feel like I'm good enough. That doesn't surprise me. Next up was acting with awareness. So when I kind of look at some of these, I tend to focus in on a lot. I tend to hyper-focus, and I tend to dwell. And so acting with awareness to me meant I'm acting with this subconscious necessity to be able to be aware of what's going on around me and to focus on the task at hand. So my wife would tell you that I have selective hearing, but I think that this also comes back to acting with awareness. I apologize if you can hear. They've got a gym class going, and I am in a gym closet, obviously, you can tell. So if you can hear the coach out there yelling, I apologize. But yeah, so my wife would say that I have selective hearing. she's not wrong. I tend to hyper focus in on things. So if I'm reading articles, or if I'm playing a video game, or if I'm, whatever I'm doing, I tend to zone in and not pay attention to what's going on around me. So if my wife's trying to have a conversation with me while I'm in the process of trying to play a video game or play with my son, 9 times out of 10 she ends up yelling at me because I'm not paying attention to her. So I have a kind of a one-track mind, a singular mind set sometimes. And that's not all the time, it's just sometimes. So the last one for me was observation. I'm very, 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 very hyper aware of myself and my body and where I'm at. And a lot of that, again, comes from my childhood. I'm very uncomfortable with who I am, and I'm very uncomfortable in my own skin. And so, noticing changes in my body, breathing, heart rate, temperature changes, immediate surroundings, things like that I tend to focus in on those a lot. Foods, textures. If I know going into a meal, I'm like, oh well, this is gonna make me bloated. This is gonna make me feel fat. Or anything, the things like that. That I feel like this kind of focused in on. Kind of that ability to focus on oneself. I think mine's more in a negative connotation than anything else. Just because of my personality and my childhood. It's something that I try to change on a daily basis. I definitely try to be like, you know what, you're good with who you are. Be happy with who you are. I have a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful son. I don't have a horrible life. I have a roof over my head. I try to make sure that those observations are always there, but I still tend to, at night, get out of the shower and look at myself in the mirror and be like, wow, you are out of shape. Politely put. And things like that. And I just, it does not surprise me that observation skills were the number one for me. They were the highest score at 42. I have a lot of work to do there. I'm looking forward to this week, to be honest with you. We're about midway through the week right now, and this is the first assignment I've done for this class. So I haven't done the 10-minute mindfulness session yet, and I'm actually really looking forward to that. I was doing a little bit of that, a little bit of the mindfulness stuff last semester for somebody's research project, and a lot of the time it actually really helped me kind of hone in on myself and hone in on the things that were going on around me, and kind of become, how do I put this? Not necessarily that it helped me become one with myself, but it helped me synthesize, I guess, what was going on around me. Again, see, I have a hard time explaining things. So yeah, that's kind of my journal experience with this. I'm really looking forward to doing the 10-step process now, and understanding that, coming up with an understanding that my skills for observation could be a strength and not just a weakness. They allow me to be hyper vigilant to the things that are going on around me, and not just with myself but with other people. And so I truly try to focus on that. And it's funny because I bash on myself saying, you have a hard time communicating with your peers. And it's not that I don't understand anything, it's just hard for me. But at the same time, I have a really I have a really effective way of communicating with the patients that I work with, especially in this population, which is the secondary school, as well as the collegiate setting. I always connected well with the patients that I was working with and those that I was around, and I feel like some of that came down to my communication skills. So I can't say that it was just horrible, but there's things that I can improve on, especially when it comes to the self-depreciation, as well as just focusing on the things as more of focusing on these types of things as a positive more than a negative. So thank you for taking the time. I apologize this is so long. Hopefully it's easier than reading a 3-page essay from me. So yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day.